Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the E.T. Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas or opinions expressed by myself, the guest, or a caller may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It's the state of giving and receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. So what then is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to a more complex human being, living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the E.T. Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is, of course, part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network and is live streamed simulcast on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour Facebook page, the Matrix Mind Media page on Facebook, as well as this YouTube channel, the ET Whisper. Welcome everyone. After these shows are live streamed, then they are put from both this show and our entire network are placed on Conscious Awakening Network, which is an amazing internet network, and also Forbidden Knowledge News Network, which is an amazing network. We're getting everywhere, guys. We're going everywhere, and we appreciate Matthew Turner for letting us use the Matrix Mind Media to simulcast on, doing it live. I want to tell you guys first, real quick, some announcements before we get to our wonderful guest, Reuben Langdon, a dear friend of mine. Many of you know him as the Interview with Extra Dimensionals guy. He's the one who created the show. A lot of you who are newer to my channeling in the last 3 or 4 years have come via that show. So many of you know him. Yes, thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it, brother. And I want to get into the announcements before we bring in Reuben real quick, guys. Right after we're done here, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific, on the Matrix Mind Media, we're going to have Matthew doing his show. And this show is going to be amazing tonight. The many worlds within the astral plane. There are a lot of parts of the astral plane that are really complex, really amazing. And Matthew Turner, as always, is able to break that down, give you insight from his own perspective, from his guide's perspective. Going to talk to the people around in the audience, as he always has great interactions with everyone, and going to get feedback about what you think in the chat. And I think tonight might be a live call-in show. It might not be. I'm not 100% sure about that. Matthew will tell me here in the chat. So that's 12 a.m. Sorry, not p.m. 12 a.m. midnight. That's 9 p.m. Pacific time. So that's going to be right after this show, within 20 minutes. And we've got next week. Yes, open lines on the Matrix Mind Media, guys. So make sure you're there after here and get a chance to call in and chat about this amazing topic. Next week, we have a wonderful couple who are dear friends of mine, who did a sculpture of Metatron for me, which is absolutely amazing. Adam and Megan Homan will be here with us next week. And the week after that, we're going to have the one and only Mama Minga, who is an amazing person. She's an artist. She's a spiritual YouTuber. She's also a rapper. She's a lot of beautiful, wonderful things. She's going to be with us the week after next. And on the 28th, the last broadcast of the year, me and Matthew Turner will be mixing together the Enlightenment Evolution Hour and Matrix Mind Media to do a farewell to the 2022 year show, which will be absolutely amazing. So thank you everybody who's tuning in from the YouTube and from Facebook. We appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much, guys. Um, ET Whisper announcements are very small this week. All I've got there is that the course for the Healing Sexuality with Artists Channeled is done. It's over, but it's going to be an evergreen course. So if you go to the website, which we'll post the link in the chat and as a pinned comment on all the platforms, if you go, you can still be a part of the course. There's literally 8 1-hour channelings about sexuality. 4 of them are what Art have shared, and 4 of them are questions and answers from you guys, from the people who originally participated while the course was going on through the 4 weeks. So it's really amazing stuff, and it's going to be there forevermore. If you get it, you get lifetime access to it. So go check that out if you want to, guys. Now, I want to talk to you guys really quickly too about our guest. 1 second, too, guys. I forgot to grab one thing. Um, Reuben Langdon is an amazing guy. Like I said, he's been an amazing friend. Oh, I can hear myself. Oh, never mind. I know why. Okay, sorry guys. So Reuben Langdon, amazing guy, amazing friend. He's also an international stuntman, actor, filmmaker, video game star, whose works you can see in productions like Pirates of the Caribbean, Power Rangers series, which was the highest grossing film of all time, Avatar, and he was a stunt double for Jake Sully's Alien Avatar, which is amazing. So if you've seen the movie Avatar and loved it, Reuben was the ET version of Jake Sully. So that was an amazing thing. And oh, all right. Sorry guys. All right. Sorry, we had someone pop into the meeting room and I didn't expect that. Sorry guys. So anyway, Reuben, he shot to stardom when he did his video games, leading roles as Ken Masters in Street Fighter, Dante in The Devil May Cry. If you've ever played those video games, Reuben does the voices for all of that. He's worked when he was working on the James Cameron's Avatar. Reuben had his first UFO sighting, and that sent him in a direction of researching UFOlogy, paranormal, and eventually he bumped into the channeling community, and that's what got him started on Interview with Ed. So I'm going to bring Reuben in and let him share a little bit about himself. How you doing, brother? How is everything going?
I guess if I unmuted myself, it would be better. Going
It
good.
helps.
Yeah, that helps. Going good. Thanks for having me on, and it's good to be chatting in this form and fashion with you. It's been a minute.
Oh, it's been a long minute to be able to do this and share. Last time I came on you with your
Yeah,
portal.
yeah. You came in as guest, and I'm hoping to get you back soon. I was going to ask you if we could do that at some point in the near future, but today we're here. We're now. Let's. Um, yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Well, I'm glad you came today. I always like to start out each show by asking the guest not what your story is. You've told your story a million times in a million different interviews. You've shared a lot with a lot of people. But what I want to share with you is that I want our listeners to get an idea of what was the person that you were before you started your journey. What happened in your own journey that created the ability for you to have a journey. So, the
Hmm.
things in your childhood, your young adulthood, what molded you to be the Reuben that was available and open to have your experiences?
Yeah, I've got like 10 different stories that I've told in the past, and I'm just like seeing them all merge into the bigger story. Yeah, there's a lot of angles to go on that one. But basically, let me see. I would just say I had, typical American dysfunctional family. Um, Dad was a military whole life, and then got into law enforcement, and um, my mom was uh, they both got married from us in a small town in Michigan. And then my mom was going off in her direction with her belief system, and going in more into metaphysics and esoteric types of thinking, and with my dad going more hardcore into Christianity and exploring different aspects of that, with even Catholicism, born again Baptist. Even I think there at some point there was some exploration in those realms, but always sticking hard to the Christian values, and just in the Bible being the the absolute truth, and then but playing with different versions and sects of that, or what is it, denominations,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the one.
So, which never really, it was, if all the different ones that I tried and went to church and did all that stuff, similar story to you, Rob, where it didn't resonate, and like a lot of it just didn't make sense to me. So I was just like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. I think I think I would I'm gonna go read a comic book. That's more interesting. So so that was having that polarity, and flopping back and forth, created an environment for me, so I didn't get attached to any specific one. I thought both my parents were nuts, and just did my own thing. So, which, of course they both wanted to influence me in each of their ways, but it was such a polarity and extreme on at that young age. I went through the paces and went to these events with my mom, and then I went to a rebirthing class with my mom, and then go to, mass on Sunday, and, drink the blood of Christ. So it was back and forth, and it was, and then I figured out in some cases I literally would skip Sunday school, sneak back into the car where I had a stack of comic books in the back seat, and I would just read the comic books, so I wouldn't have to go, and then show back up at when Sunday school's done, and like pop out of the bathroom. Oh, okay, how was Sunday school? Oh, it was great. and I was just kind of a rebel in that sense.
That's a tough gig too, getting pulled two different ways, and then kind of, expected to have that attention focused directly on what that parent at that time wants you to focus on right then and there.
Luckily, both of them were not any like super hardcore about it. It was more like, I remember my mom took me to a Ramtha event. I don't know if you've heard the Jay-Z Night story and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was the first time I cussed to my mom. I remember it was a big deal for me. I think it was a junior high school. And after the event, they were doing C&E, conscious C&E breath work, which it's crazy because I just did a Wim Hof class that it's very similar to that. But at the time, just picture junior high school young me sitting in between all these people in this giant auditorium, at a hotel, like a hotel exhibit type thing, and you have all these people doing C&E, and some of them are losing their mind in a sense, or just they're encouraged to let it all out and express the emotions and stuff. But here I'm a kid that just never been exposed to that, and there's people screaming and breathing, and it's and I was like, oh my God, what is this nut house? And and then on the drive home, so I told my mom, I was like, don't you ever effing take me to another one of these things again. You and all your friends are a bunch of nut cases. So so she left me alone. It was good, because then from that time on, I didn't get dragged to any more events. But then on Sundays, I was still getting dragged to church, until finally I had to put my foot down on that too. And so it's like, you know what? I just don't resonate, and not believing in all this stuff that's coming out of that institution. So I'm just going to stay home on Sundays and read comics and play video games. And, that's my church. That's my religion. So, but that attitude did me good. It did me good because I became, at a young age, I became my own self, and I believed in myself. And then that just led me to follow my passion, and I didn't have anything pulling me any other way. I didn't have really too many people encouraging me either, which kind of sucked, but I didn't have anybody like, oh, you really should do this, or, maybe you should, get good grades and go be a doctor or a lawyer. And I didn't have any of that pressure, which was awesome. I just got to be me, and I survived. I sold candy at school, so I could pay for my comic book habit and video game. I was always the first kid in the block to have the latest video game system, and because I had money, I made money in high school selling candy and working part-time jobs and stuff as well. But that was like, I was very resourceful for getting jobs and money so I could just do what I wanted to do. And that led me to getting over to Japan at the age of 19. I was able to get enough money together. Went through some rough periods with being a rebellious teenage kid. I won't go into all the details, but I did get into some trouble with the law. And then that kind of helped me see things in a little bit different way. But it wasn't really until I got to Japan till things really kind of was like, oh, there's a whole other different kinds of cultures that exist out there, that they respect and honor each other in the day-to-day, like they're not mean to each other. And I was like,
That's
this
got
is
to be
amazing.
a mind-blowing thing at a 19-year-old person who's lived
Yeah.
kind of a spectral life, you know what I mean, to go into a very obviously it's not a homogenous culture, but like you said, everyone treats each other respectfully there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the surface level of Japan is there's a more of a honoring of the just basic code of human decency. In general, most people are just nice people, right? There's that. But if you go to any major cities in the world, everybody's busy, everybody's kind of doing their thing, and people, you get bumped, you get pushed, there's not as much courtesy, at least especially at that time when I was just arriving in Japan in the late 90s. For me, it was a big, coming from Atlanta, Georgia, there was a big change in the culture for me on those respects, especially just how everything just fit nice as far as the convenience and the etiquette that people have amongst themselves, and respect for other people. Later, you dive deep. You live there after 5 years, and you understand that a lot of emotion is repressed, and perhaps that system might not be the best system because of or there's got to be a way to kind of go deeper. But so there is a lot of just surface level stuff. It looks good on the surface. You get underneath it, just like anything. We all have our shadows.
Yeah, it's any place you live, any job you get, anything, there's always the romance period for the first couple of years where everything is great and new and fresh, and then you start seeing what's underneath that layer. So that makes a lot of sense. And actually, I've talked to a few of my friends who've spent a lot of time in Japan, and one of them actually used to do workshops for sexual healing with people because of the sexual repression that tends to be kind of in the older Japanese culture. And he worked there, during the 90s-ish time. So I know things have changed a lot since then still, but
yeah, it's definitely still it's a deeper wound than even in our American culture, and we have that. We have oppression of women and sexual misconducts, and if you think it exists in our culture, but it's existed in Japan even longer, right? So it's a big wound that needs to be healed and attention put there. And a lot of that goes. It's a harder wound. It's a deeper wound because a big part of the culture, that conformity culture, in the sense of collectively being harmonious, which I love, and it's great. And this is why all the gaijin and all the foreigners who go to Japan fall in love with it immediately. Nobody has anything bad to say about Japan, because it's just a joy to be, even in the cities. And with so many people, there's this common respect that people have for each other in general. This is a super generalization, but it's very nice. We don't get that in these other cities, as I was saying earlier. But yeah, there's a wound for sure that needs to be healed on the surface. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So in America, we're sort of we're quick to call things out, quicker than perhaps these other cultures. And in Japan, there's the saying that if the nail sticks out, beat it down. And that's true. So it's hard for the individual in Japan to stand up. And there's a lot of issues surrounding that. And that's where, I think we want to, if there's one thing the West can help the East, is with their individuality and how to find balance. And we can learn a thing or two about overdoing our individualism to where it becomes a burden on society and others. And we could find that harmony between the two cultures. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing. The Earth has a lot of pockets of greatness, and it's for different reasons. And nobody, at least in my perspective, nobody I know who's a free thinker, who's an explorer of consciousness, would want homogenization to happen on a large level of the Earth. We don't want to all be the same thing or do the same thing. But I think you're right. These types of separation and culture can teach each other a lot of things. And as as rough as it is in America to deal with people sometimes, because of that, energy about everybody needing to be an individual so much that they become groups of all of this stuff,
Yeah.
it still does have a great strength. So you're
Mhm.
in Japan, and what did this teach you? What did this give you as a person that kind of opened you up to be the Reuben that you are now? What did you learn in Japan that you needed to be there for? Because you spent a long time there.
Yeah. So I, a big influence of me even going to Japan was the martial arts, in martial art films, and Power Rangers. I was very much into comics and video games, but the Power Ranger phenomenon definitely had its influence on me as well. Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and all the Hong Kong cinema at that time too, for me was really, I was really excited about seeing watching how amazing that craft was, or is, and just fascinated. So when I got to Japan, it was no longer this far away concept. There were martial arts, like I didn't have to drive really far to a martial arts studio to find really talented martial artists. There's dojos on every corner. In a sense, it's like Starbucks. You can find some sort of karate gym or martial aikido. There's a number of different Japanese martial arts, aikido and karate being the two most prevalent. And then I had a little bit of a aikido background from a few lessons back in the States. So right away I found an aikido, an opportunity to take aikido locally. So I hopped on it and started getting my butt kicked, and found a deeper honoring of tradition in the sense of the martial arts in Asia, compared to America. So in America, you know how we like to fast food everything. Um, there is a lot of fast food martial arts in America.
Oh
So
yeah,
that it,
I've been a
this,
part of some.
yeah, yeah. So the quality of the martial arts that I was getting exposed to in Japan was more focusing on tradition and basics and and the and we definitely have that. You know, I think most martial art instructors try to bring in that into that energy, that Eastern discipline and commitment and honor, and you know, all the things that come with martial arts. They try to bring that in, but it's really serious in Japan. Like you can't joke around that stuff in so much out there as you can here, or bypass those kinds of things. So that coming to know about that, about the history and about the martial way, which is a it's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. It's its own philosophy. It's its own um, religion in a sense. So that became my religion. I really uh, um, harmonized or sunk up with those ideas in the training. And physically, you know, I wanted to transform myself because I saw this action cinema stuff that just really got me excited. And I hadn't had that training in the past, but I just believed. I believed in myself. I believed that, you know, if I I'm in the best place to learn that stuff. You know, there's so just give it all I got, and I did. And I got into doing like modeling and commercial work out in Japan just to pay the bills. And then I think I fell in love with the idea of acting and performing, and then my love for martial arts. So it just made sense that, yeah, I wanted to be an action hero. That was my, those two things merged. And if you had asked me that in high school, and I would have said, no way, are you crazy? Just to be in front of a camera, or to even, you know, have the physical ability to even perform any of the stunts or action that I was a big fan of. Like it didn't even, I was so far off the mark at that point. And I was really far off the mark. It took many years of training and dedication to get to a place to where I was able to kind of cheat it a little bit and get in and work on projects with, you know, the big guys, Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung, and some of the action greats.
And that's amazing. And the thing about your experience that I really enjoy is that you went off to this place that you knew very little about. And I forget.
Oh, I knew a lot about it. I had been studying it every waking hour of my life. I was, you know, I was not brainwashed, but in a sense, I was just, everything that was Japanese, I couldn't get enough of it. So I was studying every day, was trying to study the language even before I left. So I knew a lot, but I didn't know anybody there, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So all that stuff had to kind of happen.
Yeah, you had to educated guess through that, but getting there was probably a whole different story from the way you perceived it going. I would imagine just getting there and getting that new experience. I can't remember too. Was it a job that brought you over there eventually?
No, it just was my desire to explore and see that country. What helped ease the blow was, so I used to work at the duty-free shops at the Atlanta airport, and a friend of mine introduced me to the job, and he's like, yeah, all these Japanese airline customers come through, and it's cool. Maybe you could practice some of your Japanese. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. So, so I learned how to count and say some basic things, and couldn't carry on a conversation, but just had some basic language skills that I would be able to practice. But also, some of the ladies that I'd worked with, they were always like so curious, like, Reuben, why are you so interested in Japan? That's so weird, And I was like, I don't know, I am, and I hope to go someday, and I really want to go, and it's like a big dream of my life. And they're like, well, we'll help you. So they wrote out on my register a little sign whenever we had the Japanese airline flights come through. So I'd post this sign on my register that says, they wrote it out for me, but it was in Japanese, and it said, young boy looking for opportunities to get to Japan and like a homestay type situation, or work for stay, or something, intern opportunities, or whatever whatever the language it was, but generally it was saying that. And then so for months go by, and people read the sign, and they look at me, and they smile, and they're like, oh, you want to go to Japan? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, that's very nice. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Anything else? Give me anything else. And they just smile and walk away. I'm like, okay. So after months of doing that, the one day I'm not at work, I forgot the sign. I left it posted on the register, so it stayed up there. And apparently this guy saw it, because when I finally went to work, all the ladies were excited. These are older Japanese ladies who married American soldiers and then ended up coming back to the States. So here I am, this young kid that's interested in their culture and wants to go. So they're all excited. They're like, wow, somebody's interested in us, in our culture. Let's, so they were very encouraging and very sweet, and always trying to help and look for opportunities. So they were all excited and yelling and like, wow, somebody came yesterday, and this is your chance. You might be able to get to Japan. And I was like, what? And they give me this guy's card. And he's like, yeah, we told him your story, and he gave us his business card and said to give him a call, and maybe he can help you out. And I was like, oh, okay. So I called him, and he was basically said, yeah, so, what was that thing on your register? Okay, well, he's like, yeah, I don't know what I can do, but I'm the head of this army base out just outside of Tokyo. And whenever you decide to come, just, maybe you can give me a call. Maybe I can help you out. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. All right. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation. So, and I hadn't, many months go by. And then when I finally get to Japan, I ended up sleeping at the airport first 2 nights because I was just terrified of just walking down in the train station with all the train lines. And this is a guy who didn't have a reservation at a hotel. I didn't have anything. I was like, I'm just going to go to Japan. I just arrived at the airport. And I'm like, now what am I going to do? So I walked down into the train station. It just it's all in Japanese. This is before they put the English in there. These days they have English. But I just was like, uh-oh, what did I get myself into? And go back upstairs. I'm hanging out and sleeping on the benches, and they're asked, please stop me, and like, passport. Okay, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just waiting for my luggage. Okay, so they left me alone. So finally, I call my mom. I tell her I'm at the airport, and she's like, well, are you gonna call that guy? And I said, I guess so. Nothing else. And I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I called the guy, and he's like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember you. He's like, yeah, well, there's a bus you can hop on, and it'll take you right to our camp and to our base, and I'll meet you off the bus. And I was like, oh, that was easy. And that's what I did. And then the adventure started. And I ended up living there for 5 years.
Jeez, that is just filled with synchronicities of needing to be excited, needing to put your energy in, knowing the right people who would support you, and the action. It's manifestation 101 in a bag.
Yeah. So I was very lucky at a young age to learn the formula. without listening to Bashar or anybody else. I just kind of got it through what worked, and I maintained that pretty much throughout my life. I did get sideswiped a little bit here and there and got off the path, but you're never really off the path. You just learn. Those are some hard lessons you need to learn, and then you're back on. But yeah, that was going to Japan and then becoming, working with guys like Jackie Chan and James Cameron on Avatar, and that whole experience. It just, it was I was following the formula, and I didn't even know it.
Someone in chat also asked, how many forms of martial arts did you learn or practice?
I practiced all of them. I never really became a black belt in anything. I just studied a lot of my passion was film fighting. So I would watch, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, Bruce Lee, the greats, and then in Japan you had, Kurata Yasaki, Sonny Chiba, all these guys who are, these great action stars of all time. And I studied what worked, and I was like, well, what are they doing? Oh, it's karate, but it's not really karate. It's movie karate. Is Kurata's base, right? But he's still got the Hong Kong rhythms. What is that? Oh, well, there's Jackie's doing the kung fu fighting, but then he goes and he does Gorgeous, which is like all boxing based martial arts and kickboxing stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, well, let's try that. Can I do a scene so I can convince people that I'm a boxer? So let's go study boxing for a few months. And get all the basics down, and and understand the movement, so I can deliver if I have to be play the role of a boxer, or fight as a boxer, or if I'm as a fight choreographer have to train an actor to look good as a boxer. I better know enough about boxing to be able to do that. So you go and I would go and train myself and train with others in those different modalities as they would come. So I've dabbled in pretty much everything.
That's incredible. When you said you started with Aikido, I actually smiled, because that's the reason I got into martial arts with all of the Steven Seagal films. I just thought it looked cool.
Yeah, that was the time. That was it.
So I couldn't get any Aikido or Aikido Yoshikai in Michigan. So the next best thing was the Korean version, Hapkido.
Oh, Hapkido.
And I got myself almost to a black belt on that too.
Nice.
McDonald's style, fast food style, but it still learned a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, actually, Hapkido is I'm more of a fan of that than Aikido. I got to train with a good friend Bruce Kahn, who was the Hapkido champion of Korea at some point years ago, and he became a good friend and training partner, and he taught me tons of the old school Hapkido stuff, like the stuff that's supposed to break bones, not all that fast food stuff. That was the way he would talk about it. He's like, I do original Hapkido. It's funny. Bruce is awesome.
We've got a guest coming in a couple weeks. Mama Minga, she's going to be the week after next, and she just said she loved Hapkido when she trained. So that's 3 people on the show that have all done Hapkido. We're going to have a Hapkido only episode next year.
Absolutely. We'll bring Bruce in, see if he's still around.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, he's a good buddy who, over the years, I was super blessed by having these amazing teachers that sort of kept me in line, always kept me from getting too big for my britches, in the sense of, here I'm striving, I'm going to do all this stuff and I want to do this. And I was a pusher. So I was trying to push a lot of times when my physical ability wasn't good enough to get to be in some of the positions. Like there's some really physically talented people out there, and I'm just some video game playing kid from Atlanta that somehow was able to stumble upon this amazing world of fight choreography and action. And because of my passion and my lack of anybody telling me no, got into some really amazing positions, like being able to work with Jackie Chan and Sammo and work on Power Rangers and other things. Like physically, there was way more talented people than what I was, but I spoke the language. And I think that's sort of the metaphor I want to try to tie that into, our basic, what you and I are about and what some of the lessons we're trying to teach and share is, a lot of what we do in life is speaking the language. And I don't know if I'm going to lose you. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I think there's a physically doing it, there's speaking the language, and then there's both, if you can do it both. But it's almost kind of like, if you're super like, okay, here's a good example. You could be the best coder in the world and just make, genius code and programs and everything else. But if you're just cooped up in your room doing that all day and nobody sees your work, you kind of need that middleman to find the genius, to be able to communicate the genius to the rest of the world.
Yes.
And I was a pretty good communicator. I wasn't quite the genius, but I was a good communicator. And then I realized if you're a good communicator, you can still find your way to the genius, if that makes sense.
It does.
So using it's kind of reverse engineering is a lot of ways I look at reality from that perspective, from how can I reverse engineer this situation, or where are we at, or untangle the cords and get the bird's eye view of everything. So that can still get you a long way. It can't get you to do the double backflip off of the stunt thing. I can do a quarter, 1 1/4, but I can't do the triple, right? But there's guys out there that can do the triple. I don't need to do the quarter. 1 1/2 is enough because I have my other skills, and I learned how to hone those other skills that are still just as much as a value in action choreography. So what I learned was how to, again, speak the language of action cinema, and I was good enough in the other areas. And I figured out that other people were not putting their attention in those areas. So the type of, for the demand of people who have those other skills, I was still commodity, right? So I'm figuring out where I fit in the puzzle and in the reality. Of course, I wanted to do the triple backflip, but
everybody wants to do the
triple backflip. Yeah, but you can only do what you can do. So you find the missing gap in what's needed. Like, oh, there's not that many. There's, in fact, at that time there was no other white guys that could speak that language in the action community to that level, and literally the language. I'm talking not physically, of course, plenty of really gifted people, white guys that could physically do anything the Asian guys could do, but there was another aspect to what they were doing that I had sort of an in on, and that was the whole action cinema language. And I used it to develop a company and develop projects and get my foot in the door in the action cinema world in the States as well, in video games. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you were saying, a lot of people doing the triple backflips, but they only have an in-home pool, and you were doing the 1 1/2 out in public. and being able to get it known to people. And that makes a lot of sense, though. We do that a lot in our lives in a lot of areas. And I definitely want to talk to you too about community, because that's a lot of where this energy ties in. But before we do, see, you've got all of these things done in your life. You, you're now an ingrained part of that community. You're working hard on the action sequence, fighting the video games, and this takes you up to the place where things shifted for you towards the interview with Eds. This is where, um, and I know we don't have to spend a ton of time covering it, just because I know a lot of people have heard us talk about it on previous shows, or have heard you talk about it on the millions of interviews you've done. But how did you get from being the stunt double from the Avatar to, oh my God, we can talk to ETs directly? I mean, that's a heck of a jump too. You know what I mean?
It was, but definitely the experience in Avatar helped me be in that frequency and that vibration. So I could attract the next steps. It's not, so if people want to, call in the aliens and at the CE5s, that's one way, but you could literally go dress up and be an alien and pretend what it's to be like an alien, and you're all of a sudden you're attracting aliens. I think that's what called it in. That simultaneously, while I was working on Avatar, learning the ways of the indigenous, as the Na'vi were based off of all these, not just one, but many of the indigenous cultures of the planet, which have tons of similarities in their cultures and beliefs, and even in their jewelry. And even different continents still have the whole pyramid thing, right? Why are all these different cultures building the pyramid? So learning about that, playing those roles, simultaneously YouTube gets launched, and Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project link gets sent to me, and I'm in the backstage of Avatar where we're waiting for the computers to get fixed. There's a lot of that, and myself and some of the cast and crew and other stunt people were like, what is going on here? There was a hearing on ETs. There was and then the Zeitgeist comes out around the same time, and we're watching that, in addition to tons of cat videos. But
of course, YouTube's prime example of their startups. Cat videos.
Yeah, that was those were back in the day. So we're all getting our mind blown, and then I'm just not like becoming a hardcore researcher or anything, but just getting enough of my feet wet to start questioning reality and like, what is going on here? And I'm playing this thing. And then it was in 2007, as I say in the opening of Interview with Ed, I had my sort of first conscious sighting, which was, I say it's like a fleet, but it was several craft in the sky, just hovering there for a good, 35, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't remember the exact time, but it was around that time. And that sent me on the spiral of trying to figure out what is reality, what are these things coming and going, and eventually signing up for a CE5 event with Stephen Greer in 2010 in Rio Rico, Texas, Arizona, and near the border of Mexico, kind of, and having that experience, starting my own CE5 on my own and with some friends, and continuing to see things and call them in and confirm that the phenomenon is real, and then doing my own research and just trying to figure things out, and eventually producing the Citizen Area in 2013, and holding screenings and documentaries at my visual effects studio that I was producing video game content out of, but really getting pulled deeper and deeper into the UFO phenomenon questioning, and then eventually Daryl and Wendy Kennedy and Nora all came to my ET meetup group meetings, and during conversations with Wendy one night after we did our meeting, and these meetings were mostly in the political field of they call it exopolitics, right? The ET phenomenon and how, and this led up to us producing the hearings, but we'd have monthly meetings on the subject and inviting anybody in the Hollywood industry to kind of come and just hang out and share their experiences. And sometimes we have special guests like Richard Dolan and some of the former members of Congress. Mike Gravel came when he was still alive, and we'd do other screenings. Like I was big into researching free energy and showing. We had Marco Rodin over, and Randy Powell came to the office to talk about VBM and vortex-based math, and shared different devices and potential. Yeah, I was deep in it, so I was doing all this stuff. So, but that was the transition. Eventually producing the show Interview with Ed after hearing Wendy's story. So it was that kind of takes you up to where I am at now, where I've sort of left a lot of that world, especially since COVID hit, just because it's gone completely bonkers. And we're all seeing it, those who are paying attention to the Hollywood madness. And it's nice. I'm away from it, and I'm focusing on my own projects, and it's a really good place to be.
Yeah, well, this is a lot of people who found my channeling found it through the Interview with Ed, as a lot of channelers on there, I'm sure, have shared that equal uptick in curiosity about their channeling specifically because of your show. So this,
Awesome.
you were deep in that field of ET, exopolitics, relations and the government to UFO, and this brought you out of that whole area. You left the Hollywood scene. Now you're living up in the mountains in California, and this is where the world starts turning, right? And we've talked about a lot of times with a lot of guests on the show about 2019 being one of the bigger shifts in the collective. And as you remember, when you and me and Ardif and Trev have talked about stuff, Trev and Ardif have always shared, 2012 and 9 years after, 9 years before. It's all a big cycle. So we knew 2020, 2021 was coming a long time before it ever came. Were you prepared for how the shift took place? Were you prepared to see how it unfolded on the earth as this gigantic shift just kind of hits everyone at once in 2018, 2019, 2020?
I don't think you can ever be absolutely prepared because you don't know what you're preparing for. But I was definitely a prepper in the sense that I had, through my deep dives into government and researching the zeitgeist stuff, 9/11, all your typical laundry list of conspiracies, JFK assassination, Roswell crash, the whole lot. Then you quickly understand, at least for me at that time, before Bitcoin was even created, I got to understand the financial system and how it worked. And I started researching global economics, and, all of the, Thrive came out around that time, and Foster did a deep dive into the banking groups and families, and even mentioned a digital dollar in Thrive One. If you listen to it, the microchipped sort of digital branding and all that stuff. Fascinating film, and still holds up today. So I was getting educated on all that stuff and kind of realizing, we don't have very long before the economy, the US dollar, the Ponzi scheme is up. And I started prepping in that sense. So my mountain home, which is my full-time home now, at that time when I was in LA, I was sort of like, okay, I'm going to look into getting just an out of the city home, just in case, one, it's nice on the weekends, and two, it's probably, just in case. And and it was really in 2016, before everything happened, that I kind of was able to realize to live in my Big Bear home full time and just pop down into the city for work when needed. So I was kind of already exiting, and I had already produced my show and was getting views on Gaia, and so I was starting to exit the matrix, so to sense, the Hollywood matrix. And not becoming as dependent, being deep in, if you're a working actor or stuntman, you pretty much have to live in LA and just be ready to flow from project to project. So
yeah, you got to come quick when they call, don't you?
Yeah. So I was kind of already exiting that, working on a limited basis, just here and there, mostly video game stuff. So when it hit, of course I wasn't like, oh, I knew it. It was, I was like, what the hell's going on? Just like everybody else. And when it's just 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and then then it's, now we're going into week 3, week 4, and you're just like, okay, come on, all right, this is starting to get really suspicious. And I had already purchased a greenhouse that I had not put together, so I was like, okay, we're locked down, we're going to be in this for the long run. This is something I knew I was going to have to learn how to do at some point, is to grow my own food. So now's the time. So put the greenhouse up, and my wife and I started planting, and that started the next phase. Yeah. Of like, okay, I kind of knew intuitively that's where we were going to be headed. I didn't know it was going to happen in such a short amount of time, and, and how our day-to-day life would be affected to move us into that direction. So it was just interesting to observe and be like, oh, this is how we're going to get there.
The thing that I loved about watching you communicate with the greater public in the last couple of years has been your drive to forge communities wherever you are. There's no place too isolated or too populated where you can't communicate with your neighbors. You can't come into the town meetings, city halls, sheriff's office, wherever you can go where there's other people at, and start sharing with them the things that you're seeing in your community. Because what I've noticed is the federal government in the United States really kind of took a lot of things in their hands, and then the state governments kind of took the rest, and they were governing like here in Michigan. The governor acted on behest of Detroit and Grand Rapids, but 95% of 60% of the population, but 95% of the landmass was not Detroit and was not Grand Rapids, and didn't have people living on top of each other left and right. And most of the places were very conservative, while the government and the high population centers were very liberal. Right. So they made laws that didn't make sense. They said you can't sell seeds. You can't go on a boat if you're alone on the Great Lakes, which are the largest freshwater lakes in the world. Like 60% of all freshwater on surface comes from the Great Lakes, but you can't go on a boat 3 miles out by yourself. So these laws started really making a lot of people upset. It was insane.
Good. People should be upset.
Yeah, absolutely. And people started coming together with their communities. A lot of sheriffs said, we have like 20,000 people in our whole county. We're not living to the standards of people who are living on top of each other. And on it went. So you saw these groups of people kind of breaking off, doing their own thing. And this is what you advocate for. If something isn't working for you, that a higher level power has dictated to you, like, hey, everyone has to stay in their homes, but you live in the mountains with people who are mostly outside all the time. So how did you start approaching people to share with them what you were seeing? Did you just walk up to them and start talking, or did you start integrating into these systems?
Well, I went door to door to my neighborhood. I'm like, hey guys, first of all, just to make sure that, because there's some elderly people in my neighborhood, and just to make sure that resources are and everybody's taken care of, especially in a lockdown type situation. You want to make sure everybody has what they need. So that was the first round was like, everybody good? You guys good? All right. And then just that was the icebreaker. So now I've got the permission slip to keep checking. You know, if they didn't throw me out and say, don't come back, you know, okay, I'm going to go, let's, you know, and then it just became, you know, every time we're out checking the mail, or, you know, I hear somebody's cutting the lawn or whatever, you know, you just pop your head over the fence and like, hey, what's the latest, you know, and then you've got your neighborhood, you know, and everybody's talking to each other and everybody's sharing ideas and perspectives. And of course, not everybody sees everything eye to eye, but the main thing is just having that dialogue and having, and letting people know just out of courtesy what you're doing. So, you know, I started building and doing stuff in my backyard. So I'm like, okay, neighbors, you know, hey, I want to be respectful. You know, I'm going to let them know what I have planned, and to see if I'm going to get any objections. You know, that's the way people used to do it. I don't know what's happened to the world where we don't talk to our neighbors anymore. But I think just, you know, life happens to most people. That's what happens. But we had the opportunity to sort of quiet life down for during that lockdown period. So, or shutdown. So that was a good opportunity to go meet the neighbors, I thought, and you know, kept the dialogue going, and still to this day, you know, I feel like the relationship is just getting stronger as we share, and, you know, you continue to check on your neighbors, and when they know that you're, you know, looking out for their well-being, then you don't have expectations that they're going to do that in return, but it's just kind of becomes a natural given. You know, when you watch somebody's back, they're going to watch your back. You know, that's humans. That's what we do.
Yeah, we're a very social species, and a lot of people forget that. I think that's kind of why we're at the state of the world we are, and why it was so easy for governments to kind of just implement what they wanted to. If they would have tried that back in the 80s, it never would have flew.
Right. Yeah.
But now the millennial generation has grew up with devices in their hands from young childhood, and the internet sucks people in. Video games can suck people in and create this kind of self-sustaining world where companionship can be had in a very superficial way. And I'm not dissing the internet. The internet's beautiful. It does a lot. It's allowing us all to do this right now. Right. But just like chocolate, you know, you have too much, it's a problem. You know, cocaine, people can go out and do it once a month and be happy, but if they do it every day, they're going to be a junkie, and that happens, right?
Yeah.
It's the hard reality of Earth. It's overindulgence. But the thing is, I think that separation of the family becomes the separation of the neighborhood, becomes the separation of the local governments, states, blah blah blah. It snowballs uphill, and it did that fast. And, you know, from the time we were in our 20s, you know, late teens, early 20s in the 90s, to the 2010s, everything changed. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
The generations above and below also shifted a lot in the way they saw things and experienced things. So you went out to do what you knew worked from your childhood, from your young adulthood, you know, community, communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, that was just been in that way of life, you know, for a good majority of my life, and it always works. It's always worked for me. So I'm like, okay, if it's not broken, let's just do it. Let's just do what works. Common sense, communication works. Why would you not communicate? And unless, you know, obviously, unless you're afraid and you're scared and you don't, you know, you're told by you're buying into the narrative of the media that everybody was getting shoved down their throats, that, you know, 6 feet separation, you're going to kill grandma, you know, the whole laundry list of goofiness. So luckily these more rural areas kind of don't they kind of have a little bit more of a community minded, listen to your neighbor. And it's different. It's a different attitude in the cities. There's a lot of things are more compact. People are you learn to disconnect because your space is limited. So keep your sanity in a lot of ways, you learn to just cut yourself off and create your little box. So you're not absorbing energetically, you're absorbing everybody's energy, right? So it's almost like living in the city. It's the survival mechanism that you have to live in the city, just to energetically be sane. So that creates that separation by default. And then something like the COVID pandemic happens, and then you're the most susceptible to it. And especially that narrative, that the idea you're going to get close to somebody and you're going to die or you're going to kill somebody else. So that is, talk about the worst place to be in something with a narrative like that. And humanity got duped, fell for it.
Well, and this is the thing that really bugged me when everything first started happening. I'm like one of the only people I know who lives in North America who had a box of doctor masks in my house before the pandemic happened. My son almost died twice with a flu, right?
Right.
So every time one of us was sick, we stayed away from him. We wore the mask if we had to get close to him, and we washed our hands, with the gel, the hand sanitizer stuff, and made sure we weren't coughing on our, the basic stuff that you need to do.
Sure.
And never once after I started implementing those rules and regulations had he gotten sick. As long as he wasn't right on top of everybody and we weren't breathing on each other's heads, we were okay.
Right.
So when that started shifting, and then the science behind the mask started shifting and stuff like that, it was very weird for me because I'd been living this for a decade or more. This was my whole, transmissible disease and flu and viruses. That was kind of something I knew a lot about on protocol because I went to the websites to look for it, and the CDC was telling me how to do it 10 years before. Just now they shifted everything. And that's what I think made most people who became skeptical when they were paying attention to how many things shifted so quickly. And I know that in any situation, information moves, and it has to, especially with unknowns, but the drastic nature of the things that we already knew that we knew, that wasn't supposed to shift. None of that was,
Right.
So it was very concerning. It brought up a lot of red flags for myself, a lot of other people. What about the people you talked to when you went out in your community and you started saying, "Hey, how you doing? Everybody okay?" What was their reaction to the protocols? Were they just like, "Oh, well, got to be safe," or were they like, "No, something doesn't smell right here"?
It was. I think most people just didn't feel. They felt something was off, but there were still some people that to take the precaution, they weren't sure. So and you want to respect their space too. You don't want to get in there. So I cautiously, would walk up to one of my neighbors and not, so they don't feel too scared or anything. But no, everybody, I think for the most part, just people were, we knew, we just wanted to get each other's backs in case there was, shortages in the stores. That I think mountain communities kind of have that. We've had evacuations from fires and different things. So the community, there's a different feeling in the mountains when you're sort of isolated, and there's even some, they call the people from down below, they call them the flatlanders, right? So it's there's this sort of like, and just in that camaraderie kind of sense, there's this there's a community, even though we're still a large, we're like 10,000 people up here, but but still, because there's a separation, there is a more of a community sense in I would say, in your typical rural area of America or something like that, just by default. And so everybody was kind of open. And then there's some other groups. I went to a lot of different meetings, and I was trying to meet as many different groups up here as I could, just to understand where the headspace was and to be prepared. Because at that time, I mean, things were shifting so quickly. And especially with the jab, and you hear about Operation Warp Speed, and they were going to come door to door with, with the National Guard was going to. Mr. Trump was like talking about that at that time. He was like talking about, the military, Operation Warp Speed. I was like, oh, hell no. So you're going to talk to my shotgun if they're going to, and a whole militia is going to have to fight the military to keep us from getting jabbed. It was nuts. And then you have, half of the world ushering it on, and then you have half the world. It was just, we were at such a divided state at that time. So it was like, okay, that was in a greater sense. It's like when you're in a community, you have to think immediately, especially in a mountain community, okay, what happens even in natural disasters or anything else? What if we're isolated, like trucks stop and, grocery stores aren't being serviced? Most people don't, that doesn't even come across their concept of that idea is not even, it's there, but it's for a mountain community, it's a little more there than not. Most people, it's not in their mind, but it does cross your mind. And especially with the state of the world, is as volatile as it is. These are things that I was thinking about for sure. And I wanted to make connections to people who also felt and thought in the same way. So finding like-minded people. And luckily, because we're in the mountains, there's a lot of like-minded people. A lot of people left the city to be here, or they grew up in the mountains. So they've always sort of been trained to, or by birth, understand these basics of, just taking care of sovereignty. There's a certain amount of sovereignty just being in the mountains that you have to think about because of weather and access and all these other things. So it was easy. It was easy to find friends and talk.
Look, it's a lot like communities that you're used to, like when you get up to the northern portions of Michigan and the UP. It's a very secluded, intimately woven place where each community takes care of each other and does so naturally because of the conditions that are possible there. That makes
and a
lot
lot
of
of people know each other by first name, and especially the people who've been here long. We're a tourist town, so we get a lot of just weekend people. But the small town feel is for sure there. I was at a group meeting yesterday too, and Kim, she puts it on, Kim and Tim, and they just open their house once a month to have these community meetings and to talk about things that are impacting the community. We had it was a big uproar about when they were discussing, it never went through, but where they're discussing max or force vaxxed on kids, grade and grade school and junior high and below. And that was, you had half the town that was up in arms. So,
sure.
So we were, just kind of creating a space where we could debate and have the conversation and talked, figure out certain things, like the sheriff, when we had mask mandates, or we're going to get arrested for not wearing a mask, then, we had sheriff, we talked to him and he's like, that's against the Constitution, guys. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. But then he had like Karens coming over and saying, we were just in the store and this guy didn't have a mask. You're going to write him up. And then it was awesome because they were like, we're going to, you can just call this number and it's a hotline, and you report anybody who's not abiding by the mask law, then you can report them right away. And then, so it was just a phone number with an answer machine that didn't go anywhere. And as it should, because again, these are clear violations of the Constitution. And yeah, you can't ask local.
It was a way to keep them happy. At least they felt like they were going to be able
to
so that was the outlet.
That was the solution. So instead of creating a, that was the third choice. There was, instead of like saying, no, we're not going to enforce that, and then having, the Karen get the feathers ruffled, then you can make your claim here, vent, get it out, and life goes on. No, you don't. It was brilliant. So
that is a pretty smart move. Beat conflict.
But it was, a time, because there was many people that were like, man, I don't want to do this thing, but I don't want to get a ticket either, and I want to be respectful for others, but I also have to honor myself. So it was a big lesson for all of us to push us in our uncomfort zones for wherever your stance was on any of the issues. There were so many issues to look at the time, but it was good.
There was a bunch to choose from.
There was a bunch to choose from, but I think we needed that as for our evolution, to kind of, for everybody on no matter what side of whatever issue it was, we all needed to take a chill pill and realize that, most of it is what really matters. What really matters is community. What really matters is that we got each other's back. What really matters is we try to use compassion and understanding, and trust, our communities and our community members, and trust that that we're all doing the right thing in our own way. And if that ends up beating against somebody else's way of life, then find the third choice. Find what's not going to cause. You don't need to be so firm in your belief system that you're going to create an unpleasant experience for other people when they go out into public or whatever. So,
that's kind of the whole thing I've seen, is the possibility to have a third choice. And when you said that, it sprung that flickering in the light bulb in my brain. It was like, so many times people were so ready to fight, they didn't consider that. They didn't want that. They wanted it my way or no way. And that was on both sides all the time.
Right.
And
Totally.
There has to be, in a society where everyone thinks differently, feels differently, there has to be. We're getting lower on time, and I want to get to a point where you can share your links and stuff. But before we do that, I also want to play a game. It's the lightning round. I don't know if I told you about it. It's just like 5 or 6 basic questions.
Oh, okay.
Very benevolent, and you don't have to answer any if you don't want. But before we get to that, I want to ask you one question. There's a lot of people in our community who say, well, if you're prepping for disaster, if you're planning food because you don't think food will be there, aren't you basically attracting that to yourself? That's one of the main things I hear from a lot of people when we talk about these things, sustainability. What do you say to that?
So, here's the reason it's the reasoning I'm doing it. Yes, to a certain extent, am I doing it to prepare for the end of the world? Not really. No, that is a byproduct. Is that, yes, I'll be able to survive if the world ends, but I'm not preparing for the end of the world. What I'm doing is I'm trying to take back my power by lessening my dependence on an outside source. And when you are growing vegetables in your garden that you're consuming, you're taking away your dependency on going to a store to get that. And that is in the vibration and frequency of sovereignty. It's also the health benefits that come from that connection that you make with your food by nurturing it every day and having compassion and responsibility for a being, another life that's going to feed you in return. And that energy loop is something that I've discovered over the years. And most people don't know that energy even exists because they haven't grown their own food or grown plants. And it's amazing. It's something that I'm actually spending more money right now, keeping my greenhouse heated through the winter so I can continue to grow my salads and greens and have that connection, because for me, that connection is worth more than what I'm getting from going to the grocery store and just getting the food. So it's not just to feed myself, so to say. There's so many other benefits to the energy and being in that frequency and that vibration that it's worth it. And I'm also creating community because I'm having extra veggies and fresh veggies and things that I can share with my neighbors. And of course they love when they're receiving it. And then they find in their way to give back, whether it's with exchanging vegetables and lemons and fruit things or just, doing a nice gesture or, looking after the house while I'm out of town. So it creates abundance, and it creates this, it creates community by having a greenhouse, and also by, just having some basic necessities and food preparation. You don't have to store enough to feed the whole neighborhood, but just having, a month supply or a 2-week supply of basics, that's just common sense in any kind of disaster that's out of your control. And it's not ushering in the disasters to take over, but it's just being prepared in case something does happen and there are supply chain issues or a big weather event, or, we're in volatile times. So I think by having a 2-week supply of just water and the essentials, didn't we learn that in second grade or something?
Yeah.
These are the basics. So anyways, hopefully that was a long-winded answer to it.
No, it's beautiful. I actually love the answer, and something I want to add to it too. When people approach me with the subject, I'm like, we live on Earth, and Earth isn't just the rainbows and love that we want it to be, because we haven't created that yet. We're working on it, but we haven't. And right now, there are still a spectrum of vibrations here, from the most benevolent to the most malevolent, and everything that's in between those. And all of that allows for co-creations to be wonky. If I give my heart and energy to creating something with another person and they have an imbalance, then something can go wrong for me because I'm playing the game with them too. So it's not just about what I'm doing in my own life. It's not what I'm only doing in my experience, but we're on the Earth. The Earth itself is a being that wants to go through what it needs to go through. So it's not just one person that's shifting everything, even though it can be that. It's a big bottle of everything, and we have to be able to navigate that. If that means getting extra food and having your comfort there, and also getting all those benefits you just talked about, connecting with the Earth, not being dependent on external entities to supply it, that's just added bonus. So that's beautiful. Thank you, brother.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm so far from being completely sustainable. Like if the grocery store shut down, yeah, that's a oh shit moment for me. But it's just doing what you can with what you have. So I've been super blessed to have this lifestyle where I can do most of my work from home, and I've had a little extra income over the years, so I was able to put time and energy in building a greenhouse and having a garden. Not everybody has that capability. So it's just really about doing what you can with what you have, and finding what your goals are. And mine is just to be more connected to that energy of sovereignty and health, good health, because all the things that come with, fresh greens and healthy soil and, all that stuff.
Yeah, and the beautiful part about a community is you have a greenhouse, maybe no one else does, but someone else knows how to hunt and fish. Another person knows how to, get across the mountain without a vehicle. Another person, mechanic, all of it. So that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the lightning round. I'm going to ask you some questions. Answer them or don't. That's fine. The first question, what's your favorite color?
Green.
Green, beautiful. And the reason for these questions is for people to get to know you more than just the Interview with Ed guy or more than just the video game guy.
Sure.
However they know you, I want to get them to know you a little better. And also, guys, I forgot to tell you earlier, Kalina is with us here.
Oh, hey, Kalina.
She's just not moderating because she's doing projects around the house, trying to do our own stuff here. So she says she loves you guys and she's here, but she's just listening. But okay, so
miss you, Kalina. Love you too.
She's waving at you.
Sweet.
So what is your favorite food?
Uncle.
Can you describe that? I heard of that.
It's a Japanese green. It's a Japanese paste that they put in, like a sweet bean paste that they put in pastries.
Ooh, yes. I've had some of those, the little fluffy, doughy balls with the bean paste in the middle.
That's it. The bean paste. Yeah.
Oh God, that is good. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, the Japanese know how to make sweets, man. I'm telling you. Okay, so what is your favorite place to be in nature simply just for the beauty and experience of it? Anywhere in the world you've been, what's your favorite place to just sit around in nature?
Place called Mitsutoge near Mount Fuji, Japan.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things about the beauty of Mount Fuji. I hope one day I'll be able to see it with my own two eyeballs. That'll be beautiful.
I'd love to take you out there. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We should go. What is your favorite song and or band?
I do. Okay, Zigguros.
I've not heard of that. I'll have to check it out.
It's an Icelandic band. Very they use a lot of natural sounds and mix it in with some electric stuff. It's fun.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I'll have to check that. If you send me a link later, that'd be great.
Sure.
Last question. What's your favorite childhood memory?
I just posted on Twitter. This is probably not the most, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind. I used to be a big fan of, basically everything Japanese. And before I realized it was Japanese, I was watching all these shows, and it took me a couple of years to sort of add it all up. But one of the first shows I really enjoyed as a kid was Spectreman. And if you don't know what Spectreman is, go to my Twitter page and you'll see, I think it's the last episode of Spectreman. It's a Japanese, kind of a Power Ranger kind of show.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
Yeah. It was fun. So I'm watching it these days. I was just watching the other day. A clip popped up and I'm like, oh my God, this was so awesome when I was a kid. I love this. It was bringing back all kinds of nostalgia.
Oh, I bet. I was a Voltron kid too. I love that show.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, Voltron was definitely there for sure.
That was one of the best. So before I get the opportunity to let everybody know how to get a hold of you, how to find your work, how to integrate in communicating with you, or maybe, asking you how to help with their own communities, whatever the case they want to communicate with you about, I want to tell you, first of all, thank you for what you do. The Interview with Ed, Extra Dimensionals has been a huge part of our community. It's really gotten a lot of our channeling out to a lot of people whose lives have been bettered by that. And everything you've done since and before, you always put your heart into it. As a person, you're legitimately one of the best people I know who really cares about what they do and who cares to put the energy behind it simply just to help other people. And I really love that about you.
Thanks, brother.
And yeah, I love you, brother. And I'm glad that we've got to meet in this life. And I'm even happier that we've got to be friends for as long as we have. So thank you for coming on tonight and sharing your heart with everybody.
Oh, anytime. I'm glad you had me on, and we definitely, the more we can do this, the merrier. I've got all my websites, which is just my first name and last name, ReubenLangdon.com. Interview with Ed is probably interviewwithed.org, all one word, is probably the best way to find me. And on that platform, we have this new membership portal, which you came on as an early guest, and it's been going good. Every week we get I call it Interview with Ed 2.0, and we get a lot of the original cast, including yourself, of Interview with Ed. The different shows pop on for a Sunday Zoom call, and they're not as polished as the TV show, and definitely the raw and unedited, but it's an opportunity for the viewers and the members to ask questions, and it's been going good. You got to be on super early on, but we've been doing it, keeping it going, and we've been building the community, and it's fun. It's fun to share every week and see familiar faces, and work on ask different questions, but working on similar concepts and ideas. So, there's Charmaine. She's part of it.
Yeah,
she is. She's like, membership portal is where it's at. Yoo-hoo.
Yeah, it is a good group of people there.
Yeah. So definitely come hang out with us over there. And that's about it. I got Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and all that stuff. But really, I'm most active on Twitter right now, as Mr. Musk has decided not to be so censorship crazy. He's being a little more friendly to freedom of speech. So I feel it's a good place for me to express myself and post different, ed related things and just general news things that I share, stuff I'm interested in.
Well, that's beautiful, brother. And I did put all the links except for your Instagram in there, and I'll add that here in a little bit. So thank you, brother. Everybody go check out Reuben's stuff on all of his platforms. It's great stuff. You can find all the links down below except for Instagram, but we'll get that up. And I wanted to remind all of you guys, first of all, thank you guys for being so active in the chat tonight. It's beautiful. All of you guys from the Matrix Mind Media is great. All of you from YouTube is great. And I just wanted to remind all of you guys to go pop in and check out the Matrix Mind Media. The link is in the description on Facebook. And there's a YouTube channel as well, but the link's below. He's going live tonight in about 30 minutes from now. So go check that out, guys. They're going to be talking about the astral realms and the many states of the astral realm. I'll be there hanging out in the chat too. So join us over there if you guys haven't had a chance to see that show. It's amazing. Great group of people, great community. Thanks again, brother. I appreciate you. I love you. We'll definitely do this again, and I'll be over on your platform too when we'll get some times to get set up. So thanks again, brother. I appreciate it. And thank all of you guys who joined us. We will be here next week with Adam and Megan Homan, and the week after with Mama Minga. We're here every week on the Enlightenment Evolution, our Facebook page, the Media Matrix Minds Facebook page, and of course ET Whisper YouTube channel every Wednesday, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That's 7 Pacific. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Love you guys, and bye.